I'm Milton Tyree. I'm an associate with Mark Gold and Associates from the U.S. And we're going to talk now about how post-employment support, job coaching support, works in the area of customized employment. The top 3 tips that I have for a job coach would be to stay curious, to always be learning, and to listen. And a really important part about listening is try to listen more than you talk. That's something that I personally find difficult, but really helpful when I can see through to do it. That's my first top tip. The second one is to challenge conventional wisdom. Everybody knows that this or that happens, that Mary can do this or can't do this or never has done this, but to think about what kinds of circumstances need to be in place. And the third top tip, is to be gentle with others and also with yourself, because we've got a lot of mindsets to change. To be gentle with yourself and others, but to always keep your eye on the prize, to keep moving forward. The idea of natural supports within a workplace and how to encourage businesses to use those natural supports in teaching a person with a disability is a very interesting idea to consider, because natural supports are what a company always does. So all we want people to do is what they always do. And we don't want to interject ourselves unless people need something different. So the way to propose it is to say, I really want to study how people typically learn the tasks that we've negotiated for Joe and how they teach. I might have some ideas about that, but it might be that that will be just exactly what Joe needs. More often than not, that's the case, but I'll be available to assist if needed. And the employer might say, but we worked with somebody before and they had a job coach who did all the training, and say, well, that has happened some in the past, but we don't think it's best, and this is why. Because we really want Joe to come in as an everyday employee of your business. And if somebody else is providing instruction, that's going to create a real disconnect. They're going to think of Joe more as being a client of that organization than an employee of your business. Furthermore, somebody who's external to your business, it's going to be pretty unlikely that they could train the job as well as somebody in your business who does that day in and day out. Typically, the way that you perform a task is really important. If everybody's doing it the same way and learning it the same way, then that will work better for Joe as well. And just in terms of our presence on the job and you getting your work done and us moving on and working with other people, the more we honor the way you typically do things, the better it will be for everybody. This idea about fading support on the job is really important, even if the people who typically do instruction are doing that as much as possible. We want to be present when we're needed. So this idea of when we need to be present, when we don't need to be present, is really important. I recently heard Peter Simmons from Tasmania on a webinar around this particular issue, around a man that he had walked with for 17 years in the same job, the longest serving employee with this company. This is what Peter said, and I quote, "You must be there for the long haul. In Clinton's case, 17 years, fading in and out on the job as needed. Natural supports are powerful, and support workers supplement this. It's not a case of one or the other. It's a case of both, and they fluctuate." I just think that's so beautifully said, because so often we think coworker support's good, natural support's good, organizational support's bad. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of thinking about using what is typical and valued as much as possible, certainly, but it's never abandoning people, either the company or the person you're supporting. And I really liked what Peter said about jobs evolve over time. Tasks are going to change in 17 years. People's coworkers are going to change. All kinds of things are going to happen where it's going to be important for the support person to be aware of what's happening on or off the job, to providing support for that person and for the business to keep things going. So there have been two primary sources of information that have been helpful in my understanding about people with disability taking their rightful place in the world of work and what needs to happen. And those two sources have been my learning through Mark Gold and Associates, and also through social role valorization theory. And so I've had a chance to talk a bit about Mark Gold and Associates, Mark Gold being one of the pioneers who understood that people who had been labeled as unemployable, never could work, would actually be capable of learning how to do very complicated tasks if we just took the time to figure out how to teach. And then Dr. Wolfensberger, who was a contemporary of Mark Gold's, taught us about people's vulnerability to social devaluation and how to address that, how to think about what is it that happens for everybody else and how to make that possible as much as we can, to think about valued social roles, the role of employee being a huge valued social role in terms of the kinds of relationships people have, opportunities to contribute, to belong, to be appreciated, all of the benefits that come from that. In terms of thinking about how to design a job in a way that makes people at their best, it's very consistent with the way we look at work within Mark Gold and Associates. And so how can we bring out the best in people? One of the things that has really held back people with disabilities is this idea of competition, that they have to compete with everybody else. And what's been left out of the equation is what people have to contribute. Because even if people can't compete with other people, everybody has something to contribute.